We're on the bottom of page Kukman Bob, very last line, which summarizes the whole discussion before. And it says, Haredi his havus hayesh hu me'en esoib hasoibiv davke. Thus, we see, as it is brought out in the various, in the Zakedesh and so forth, that the yesh is sourced in Oirin Soiv HaSoiviv, not the Mamala. Even though a yesh, just want to put it in perspective, a yesh has an identity, what it stands for, what is its form. Therefore, this is the Mamali aspect. But in order that this form should have the quality of a yesh, it has to have the as its background the soiviv, the makif. We discussed this quite extensively over this last week. All right, it'll probably resurface, but right now we should go further.
What's the role of mamale if it's sourced in makif?
Mala is that which identifies the particular function of any entity.
Not creating it, but identifying its function, as opposed to creating.
The creating is by the koyach of the Ein Sof, of the Hasoiviv. Like we said, that the Hasoiviv is mislabish in the kelim that Atzilut and creates that which the kelim create. But the koyach of creation is always from the Soiviv, even though he has to go through the Mamali.
Unless they call the other Soiviv is mislabish.
Yeah, well, his lapsus does not mean because slapshus does not, in this case, does not mean that it's mislabish, that it is fully understood and identified. The slapshus means that it relates to it, it gives it, it empowers it.
In Kuntus Eitz Chaim in the beginning, Kuntus Eitz Chaim, he says that the chomer comes from the makif and the tzure comes from
the Mamali.
So is that the same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. This, the individual form.
But isn't the tzure like more edel than?
Yep.
So then why would the details come from tzure? Isn't it tzure?
We have to think into these things, not via the services of our words, rather by the services of our seichel, and even the source of the seichel. What is this about? What is a creation? Let me give you a very simple illustration. I realize, we're not that deeply imbued in this thing. We spoke the other day that you learn something and you're compelled to go and write it down. What is the significance? Why do you write it down? You learned it, you know it, you understand it. Why are you compelled to go and write it down?
Because there's a part that's pushing you. The Ratzon is pushing you.
What is it? And this writing down, this is the yesh, this is the creation from this entire learning process. This is where you learning. Learning is an internal seichel element. When you write it down, you place it outside. You make an entity out of it. What's compelling you to make an entity out of it? Primarily you're interested in to understand it. And the answer is, to understand it to the point where you really recognize it as a reality, you have to create an entity, a standalone entity.
To understand it as a reality, you have to create a standalone entity?
Yeah, one second. Why do you have to create a standalone entity? It's a common experience that we all have. You see something special, something exquisite, extrative, something special, unusual. You will be greatly relieved if you have somebody to share it with. Did you see it? Did you see that? What is this? What is what is this sharing signify? Please follow this with me. The sharing signifies that I'm seeing it not because I see it. This is my own projection. It is due to my own experience, and that's why I see it. No, it's a real thing. It's universally recognized. He is a guy next to me who did not have the same experience that I had, and yet, if I point out, he also sees it. He also appreciates it. He also sees its wonders. Looking at it from that perspective, to see it not as my personal experience, my personal identity, but rather as a universal truth, universal reality, that is very significant. Very significant to the thinking mind. There's a well-known saying that we've always quoted from Rakachov Gaon. Everybody heard of Rakachov, right? Lubavitcher did not have Rakachov, I couldn't easy. It's not a Lubavitcher. What?
He knows about the Rakachov.
Rakachov was a big Gaon. And the nature of a Gaon is that his mind is constantly active. He's constantly involved in something. And when he's involved in something, new ideas surface. These new ideas are treasures. So he said that the most difficult day by him is Shabbos. Because the ideas is constantly just surfacing, but you can't capture them, you can't write it down. What happens when you write it down? If you write it down, that means that you're able to identify this idea so clearly that you put it in words. That's extremely important. The fact that I could see it vaguely, so to speak, I have an idea, is not concretely identify the idea. When you're able to put it in writing,
then it becomes universal. Is that the point?
No, not it doesn't become you find and see that it is universal. You're able to write it down because it is universal. But this you see it because you understand. But when you bring it down to the point
that proves, like to say that it's universal.
What?
That proves that it's universal.
It doesn't prove it. That's where you get it from. You get it from its universal perspective, not from your own.
By writing it
means
down,
of understanding. What?
By writing it down, it adds a universal perspective.
No.
Why is that? You said two parts.
No. You're misquoting. I understand. Let's take a very simple thing. You're looking for this house, or 770. And you were told, if you stand here and you go this way, you make a turn here and make another turn, you'll get to 770. Now let's say, if somebody, the person is giving you these directions, he says to you like this, look, I know how to get from here to there. I don't know in which city 770 is, in which county it is. I don't know in which neighborhood it is. I just know how to get it from here. If you go this way, you'll hit that house. Would it be helpful to you to know that 770 is in Brooklyn?
Sure.
Right? And the state of New York and the United States? Why? You got to 770. Because then you got 770 on a very limited level.
So writing it down adds those other coordinates?
Writing down does not add, it alludes to that. It has to go back to that source.
Okay.
To write it down means that you...
Right. It does seem that you have the truth of the matter, and then by making it more concrete, something's added there. I don't get, it's validating it or it's confirming it for you. You have the truth of the matter.
One second. No, listen. Okay, we don't have. Give me a piece of wood for a branch, whatever it is. Okay, more. You find a piece of wood in the street. It's a dry piece of wood. Let's say if this piece of wood, along with the wood, it has the roots. The roots are still attached to this piece of wood. Then it gives you a completely different relationship to this piece of wood. This is not a piece of wood. This is a piece of wood that grew out of the ground. And in fact, it was, and it developed over many years until it became this tree.
So by showing its yeshus, you see the roots.
Yeah.
But things are not rooted in Metzios; they're rooted above.
That's right.
But by showing them up in yesh, in
how did the tree get its Metzios? Because of the roots.
Yeah.
That's it. That's exactly it. If you bring it down to Metzios, that means it has a real root.
That the yesh has the iron.
That's right. If you bring it down to Metzios, you can go back to the point where I don't know anything, and here is where it shows up.
We'll just go back to the It's the idea over there that's Chomer and Tzura. How does this go back to Chomer and Tzura?
Okay. The Tzura, in order to present any yesh, it has to have a form.
Has to
A
have.
form. Otherwise you won't see it. So the Tzura is at the level of presentation. But its root, the source of what enables you to present it. What gives you the idea that there's something that's presentable?
So
let me just finish this for a second. I just want to. This explains that the earth produces all kinds of growth plants. So our wise men of the scientific world say that that they put a kernel into the ground, the kernel splits open, and there is a miniature tree in there, and it develops and begins to draw sap, so to speak, a life force from the earth, not life force, nutrients, actual nutrients, and it eats just like a human being eats, and then it grows into a big tree. So Chassidus explains there's a dimension here that you miss completely, and I can't blame you because you only know world, earth. The reality is that there is what's called koyach hatzemeach. The reason that trees grow is not because they're in the ground and they can draw nutrients from the ground, but because the ground has a koyach eliki that they're able to put into the ground to make things grow. Yesh mayayin. It's a divine koyach. And this is why, contrary to their perception, please see if you can follow us. This koyach in the earth, koyach hatzemeach, will never dissipate. You cannot drain it. Because it's a koyach yesh me'ayin. It constantly recreates itself. No matter how many trees you plant, it will continue to produce healthy trees. Not trees that grow in a drained out resource. It's constantly replenishing, constantly refreshing itself. Why? Because this is a koyach halakhi. This is not a world level koyach. It's a divine koyach. Divine koyach never gets old. It's always as fresh as when it is first conceived. Conceived. The creation of an entity, like a tree, is rooted in this divine koyach of koyach hatzemeach. Halacha, I always say halacha brings things clearly and hits us straight out. Halacha says like this. This was called an otzitz nokuv, and otzitz she'ein nokuv. Otzitz means a flower plot. Flower pot. If a flower pot has earth in it, you can put a seed in it or blend, and it'll grow. It'll grow from the earth that is in the pot. If it has a hole underneath, nokuv, or it has an hole underneath, then this flower pot and this earth connects directly to the earth, to the source of tzmicha, to the source of koyach hatzemeach. The plant that will grow from the flower pot itself, I mean, it's a otzitz she'ein nokuv, not what you can say, is a sick plant. It's a sick plant. It'll grow, but it doesn't have the chayas that a plant should have. It has only the gashmius, not the ruchnius.
The AYIN.
Huh?
The AYIN.
Ein nokuv. If it's nokuv, it represents the whole resource, the chayas behind it. That's a real plant.
Even if the pot's not touching the ground, yeah?
Not that, even if it's just above the ground.
It's on a table, whatever.
If it's on the table, then you block it. It has to be open to the ground. The halacha says that if you have an otzitz nokuv means it has a hole underneath. Nokuv means it has a hole underneath. A pamphlet, a flower pot that has a hole in it, and it has full of earth, then it has plant. If this flower pot is standing on its tripod, you know what a tripod is?
Yeah.
On its supports. You pick it up from there and put it on the table. On Shabbos. You carry it from this tripod to the table. What happened? Nothing terrible. You're over on uprooting something from its source of growth.
You're Mechal Shabbos.
Mechal Shabbos.
It's like he's covering.
It's like you're tearing off a piece of grass from the ground.
From its source.
Why? Because this is now rooted into the ground. When you move it onto the table, you uproot it from the ground, and you're even on koitzer.
The tripod is resting on the ground,
In fact, resting on
not on a floor.
No,
on the ground, under earth.
on the earth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but inside your house, on the floor.
How
No,
can it
not
be?
the house.
No.
Outdoors.
How can it be?
No, it has
Outdoors,
to-
over the earth.
Back in the day.
Outdoors. It has to have direct
View to the earth.
direct relationship to the
But
earth,
not touching it.
not touching it.
So you're saying the earth is from the Lokov is not touching the earth and the ground, and it's still considered cuttings,
It's not touching, but
It's not touching. It's open to it.
but it's not touching.
Okay? Koyach Hatzemech is a
Even
koyach.
it's not touching.
It's not touching. Koyach Hatzemech is a koyach, it's a divine koyach, and it protrudes all the way up to the sky.
even if it's not touching, it's still connected.
One second.
Okay. Now, Moshe,
You have something to add to this?
No, I just want to, first of all, we digressed a little bit. Where does this connect back to the original?
Chomer and Surah. So I explain that Chomer is that which has a source in the Mitzvahs of the world. In the Sefer, in other words, in the Koyach Hatzimeach. Surah is formed by the seed that draws from the Koyach Hatzimeach. It's on a different level.
So in the poil, it's correct to say that the chomer is abler than the surah. And so it comes up a little bit. Because normally the perception
Okay.
is that the chomer is.
No, very good. Okay, let me explain.
What's that question?
Normally it would be perceived that the chomer is the more grubber,
Gross
coarse
material.
coarse material versus the tzara, that's the edelkeit of it. And the poil, the way it's being expressed here, the poil, the chomer comes from the makif, and the tzara comes from.
Chomer comes
That's
from.
right.
The makif, and the tzara comes from.
but one thing we see
Mother.
that must be that the chomer is more idler than the tzira, because the tzira comes from the chomer. It can be better than the chomer.
Mm. They always say have very simple mishalim. You invite somebody to your home. And inviting somebody to your home means has a very broad implication. The main thing in the home is the company, that you appreciate his company, you appreciate being with him. Typically, to show your appreciation of his company, you will serve him a cup of tea, or serve him a dessert, whatever, you serve him something, a legima, whatever it is. This legima is made of a physical food, which you can give under any circumstances. The company, the fact that you your guest, that is an extreme human spirit. And yet, let's say you have your guest, and you sit with him 3 hours, and you're engaged in very involved personal conversation, but you do not serve a cup of tea. Nothing. So you say, what's missing? We have the whole ruchnius. What would you think of a person who could sit with you in his home for hours, and personally he's thirsty, so he goes and takes a glass of water, and takes a glass of juice, and you are here as a guest, you're on a higher level. You're on a higher level, you're not into eating now, into drinking. You're still engaged in a heavy conversation. What message would that give you? Listen to this. See if we can follow through this. The message that he gives you this is like this. He enjoys your company, but he doesn't know that you're a real person. He enjoys the conversation, the tzura of our interaction, but that you're a real person that also lives physically, that has a real presence, that needs to drink from time to time. Oh, I thought you're all seichel, you're all looking, that's why I invited you over here for. I didn't invite you because you have a stomach.
It's like he's a book, a cipher.
So, what is a deeper and a greater recognition of the person? By serving him the cup of water or not serving him a cup of water? In both instances, you're interested in the conversation. But you're interested in the conversation as coming from a living human being. Not as you take it, but as the interaction with the living human being. So here we say, yes, Chomer is coarser than Tzura. But Chomer is the basis, is where the Tzura lives from.
Chomer is from where the Tzura lives from. I thought it'd be more Atzmi is where it lives from.
That's right, the Chomer has the Atzmi, has a source of life. There's an interesting halacha. It was like a halacha in the station. Actually, this is Mamash Amish. The halacha is like this.
Wait, this whole that you sit and you talk and there's water, there's no water, is to illustrate. What did we just come away with? I'm not sure I'm following along here. That he had the guest and you had the great conversation, and the one guy offers him his tea, the other guy doesn't. So it's not the chomer that's missing. The guy's not relating atzmi, that I have a real guest, neshama.
That's a choimer. That's a
No, why is that
choimer. I invited him not because of his.
But it's not gufni. It's not gufni. It's not choimer. It's the atzmi. I have a real person.
Listen.
You missed one part of the
Yeah.
that they were busy. The focus of this conversation was a ruchnistic conversation, and that went.
Sichli-
Which is higher
Yeah,
than the
no.
chumrius.
No, right. And what was lacking was not chomer, was atzmi was missing.
What's happening? The chomer. We didn't give him water to drink.
It's not his guf that I'm concerned about. It's him, and him is nefesh
After
beguf.
PALTIEL explained it,
You
then
hear?
you
You hear? I'm very concerned that it's the
I have
chumri.
the
It's
same
not chum. It's not chomer. It's the atzmi of him.
I'm concerned that he's going to die.
No, exactly. That's my point. I'm concerned about him, not that
What
his,
him?
not that his
What
guf is
him?
lacking.
Him is his
Again,
seichel.
not that his guf is lacking.
Him is his seichel.
Fine,
His
but
ruch.
not-
I invited him in the house not because of his looks, of his physical, because of the seichel that he carries.
But again, if I give him water, it's not.
No, you
It's
listen.
not
To me.
the word
You
chomer.
listen to me. This was a
Yeah.
reaction to his question. You heard of his question?
I heard of it. What was it? again?
Okay, so now we're going back.
which was higher, which was more.
Typically, chomer is more
Oh yeah, he
coarse.
said which is more coarse, and
Chomer is
chomer
gonna be
seems
more
clearly
coarse.
more coarse. So this was
Right?
to answer
and,
that.
And we're saying that in the way we're describing it here, comes out that the chomer comes from the makif. The chomer is the
Higher.
Chomer turns out,
Eidela.
Chomer is idler. Higher.
and
It's
that
still coarse.
fine. And
It's not.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it doesn't make it less coarse. It just means it has a higher source. It reflects something much more refined, but it itself
its
is
qualities are lacking. Yeah, but it's sourced.
So what's the bottom line? Are we?
And the mushroom over here would
realize-
be the T is the chomer. In other words, what's happening in this conversation? The T is the chomer, and the conversation is the tzur, right?
They're not both tzura. It's part of the serving, part of the
No,
pnimi.
because-
That's what I don't. That's my issue, but nobody mentioned that. I was waiting for someone to mention.
We're not describing the whole picture. We're talking about a specific question. Chomer versus surah. Okay.
So before we said that about that sealers, that the oil is not mislabish mamash, but you can pause it. But in Eses fields, there's oil is pnimium. The chesed, I'm lost there.
Cup of water. Okay. I'm serving you this because of the cup or because of the water.
Water.
Is the water in the cup?
Yes.
And if the water were flying all over the place, could I serve you the water?
No.
So the water is mislabish in the cup or not?
Yes.
But it has become part of the cup?
No.
That's the slapshus we're talking about.
Yeah, but the water is mislavish in the cup, not the pneumius.
No, I'm asking you,
Or the
how can I serve you the water without the cup?
It's like saying now that the water is mislavish in the cup, it's not the pneumius.
I don't know. I
Okay,
really
but-
don't know,
okay, fine.
because we can't start going to terminology. Everybody has a different interpretation of this terminology.
Okay, but in Eses sphere, it's the chesed lira. It's called or is bakailem in oifim pnimi. Where's the soidev there? Why was it said that the oilis is mislavish?
The water in the cup. Where is the water from? Remember, we've gone through this one time.
The water is from the ocean.
The water is from the wellspring, the source of water. And if it were not, you couldn't drink it. So am I giving you water from the source, or am I giving you water that's contaminated from the earth, from the environment?
It's from the source.
Okay, from the source.
Could
I think we exhausted this whole question.
Can I go back to another angle that I wasn't clear
What?
on? I don't know how good the Hisavasa is Nisava Keli. What does it mean, Hisavasa? Oh, we already went back anyway.
Yisabas ho'er and Yisabas hakein is eben. Let me explain to you that. But again, we have to put on the thinking caps. Yisabas ho'er and Yisabas hakein means the following. We'll go to our water motion. It's a tangible thing. Everybody knows what water is. Now, water originates in a wellspring. Then afterwards, it comes out and becomes a lake. Afterwards, it is gathered into a house, into a pail, into a basin. Then it goes into a pail. Then it goes into a cup, and then you can drink from it. Now, this drinking phenomenon of the water, has things been created now at the time when you put it into the cup?
Really not.
This element that this is drinking water, this was the original purpose of this water. There's a higher level that water can reach, is that it provides for drinking. You can go swimming, you can go washing, but the highest level is that you can drink it. This is the real water. Maim Chayim. What's Maim Chayim all about? That it's fresh water to swim in it. Maim Chayim means it refreshes a person's life. This Maim Chayim contained when it was in the basin, when it was still in the lake. Potentially, it contained already the inyan that it's going to be drinking water. But that will not be identified until it goes through to a different environment and goes into a keli. Who conceptualized the keli? What's conceptualized? The keli was conceptualized after you identify that this is drinking water.
So the Alberich said in the Eiris, the Mashul, Kli HaGvura is mitzad the Eir HaGvura?
Yes. Yes. In other words, it was not superimposed on the oil. The oil contained this. This is ultimate its purpose.